And thanks for joining us. Here we are at Salt. And to start us off, Miranda.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I actually asked Aspen just before we started what I should talk about during these few moments of time that Brett allots me at the beginning of every Salt. And she said, since she's sitting there eating a snack of colored goldfish, I should talk about goldfish and her birthday, which is coming up on the 17th. I think it's Thursday this next week. And she'll be turning 17 on the 17th. So she wanted you to know she'll be having her golden birthday, that if anybody would like to donate to the cause, that the GoFundMe link would be down in the comments. Actually, it won't. But, yeah. And, you know, goldfish, they are so tasty, right? I mean, you just can't beat goldfish for a snack. And we actually have a cat, our older cat, who loves to eat goldfish. We don't feed them to her very often. She actually hates real fish. Won't touch the stuff. It actually makes her throw up. But she loves the little goldfish crackers, and so every now and again we would toss her one or two. Yes. And what do you think about goldfish, Brett?
I wasn't listening. I was sharing things around.
Did we have goldfish in our fish tank in Vegas?
No.
No.
No, because he brought the big tank, and it was...
oh, was it a saltwater tank?
I don't think it was saltwater, but it was very tropical.
Oh, yeah.
And he had types of fish so that you could only have so many because they needed so much space. And so I think it was goldfish would have eaten the others because the goldfish would just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, he did have the tank set up so that the fish would not be eating other fish. Yeah. When we lived in Vegas, a guy and his wife in the church were going to be moving to a remote place in Alaska. And so they had, a 50-gallon fish tank, and asked if we wanted it. And Brett's like, well, sure, before he realized I think it was a 50-gallon fish tank. And so this guy, literally was like, well, I'll have my fish people bring it over for you. And so, yes, the fish people brought it over. It took up the entire one side of a wall at our place in the living room. And Brett had a submarine, one of those little submarines, remote control ones.
Yeah, our little RC sub.
Yeah, and he would put that in the fish tank and
chase the fish around.
Yeah, driving around. So
that was fun. I'm sure they were terrorized. But
yeah, but
I think it was a mistake. I think when he told me he wanted to give us a fish tank, I think he said it was an email. And it said, I thought it was a 5-gallon tank, and he had forgotten a
zero.
And it was 50. Well, I don't think it was. I think it was more than 50.
I think it was too. It was a really big fish tank.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, it was the whole side of a wall.
Yeah, and so when we left Vegas, rather than take the whole thing with us, and we'd had to restart the fish from scratch and all that kind of stuff. And his fish tank people, they moved it in and they set it up and got everything just right. And I remember the one thing they told us was that hungry fish were happy fish.
Yes.
And sometimes, if a meal is a little late, I try to tell myself that. A hungry fish is a happy fish. So I'll be a happy, hungry fish. But
I think we got it.
Anyways, when we left, we left it with the church in the youth room, and I don't know, we still saw pictures of it in the youth room quite a few years later. So
yeah, I think it's still there. And the Las Vegas, that was the Mountain View Church in Las Vegas, and in the youth room, what used to be the youth room. I don't think it's the youth room anymore. I think they're using it for something else. But yeah, that was big fish tank. Fish tanks are fun, and it had different colored lights on it and all kind of stuff. But it was, there was no way we were moving that thing. That thing was gigantic. Yeah, I remember when they showed up, and I was like, so this is a 5-gallon fish tank? No, it's a 500-gallon fish tank. It's gigantic. Anyway, I actually have no idea what we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's.
I'm just here I'm just here. I'm just Ken. That's it.
But look, we're matching today.
Yes.
Blue shirts, yeah.
Ken has to match Barbie.
Yeah, he's an accessory.
I'm an accessory today.
Yes, okay. So basically today we're talking about Abraham and Lot. I know that we've talked about Abraham and Lot, or Abraham and Lot.
A lot.
Well, we did there for a little bit. I went on a real kick. I couldn't help myself. So, yeah, but you know what? There's always something new to learn from each story in the Bible. And so today is more Abraham and Lot, and Imelda Marcos and her 3,000 pairs of shoes.
You better tell people about that. I don't know if everybody in this day and age remembers that.
All right. Well, when we get there, we'll talk about that. And I wasn't going to add Barbie in anymore. I figured after what we had talked about last week that was enough. If anybody wanted more spiritual analogies to the Barbie movie, they could read the blog I had written. But, I was talking to my sister about that and said, you know what? You could just throw in little pieces here and there. And I thought, oh, all right, I could do that. And so you may find a little piece here or there today of Barbie, but not, we can't say this is about Barbie.
I should have worn my pink shirt. Or maybe just a partially pink shirt.
Partially pink
I don't know.
shirt. I don't know if you have one of those.
I don't.
Okay, and starting in Psalm 23:5. Okay, I know that I use Psalm 23 a lot as well, and it's only like 6 verses long, right? But there is so much in it. If you could pack in a suitcase that was the size of a 6-verse long chapter, and yet when you opened it up, like it'd be your whole closet in there. I mean, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't you want to do that? And so there is a lot of stuff in those, I'm pretty sure, 6 verses.
You mean
Psalm
it's
23.
bigger on the inside?
Yes.
Is it?
Wah, wah.
Wah wah.
Wah, wah.
Doctor Who fans, you'll get that.
Okay, I'm out. I'm just entirely clueless.
It's bigger on the
Yeah.
inside. Is it?
Okay, so Psalm 23:5, my cup runneth over. And John 6:35, and Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. Okay, so here's that smattering of Barbie. In the movie, when Barbie eats breakfast, she has plastic toast with plastic butter on her little plastic plate, and she also has this cup of juice, and when it gets tipped back, nothing comes out, and yet she acts as if she is actually drinking her orange juice for breakfast, right?
Going through the motions.
Right, and they contrast that later in the movie when Barbie has moved from Barbie world into the real world, and there she gets surprised when she picks up her cup of juice to drink it, and juice actually comes out and splashes her on the face. Right.
Much like I did with Aspen when she was a baby. Not really. Sorry. Confession time.
Right.
Here, Aspen.
I think you made some notes right here.
I did?
Yeah.
Going through the
Good
motions
motions.
and getting empties versus... Oh. Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that, how many, how often or how long would we go in our life, just going through the motions of things. Like, I don't know, it just seems like when you're young, you have all kind of energy and you're, it's somewhere in life you start, I don't know, losing the zest for it, or, the excitement of it or whatever, and you just start going through the motions.
Well,
and
life is always exciting.
like, well, it is now, but before Miranda, no. And you do, like with church or, your job or something, you just start going through the motions and you're not really living, you're existing. And that's kind of what Barbie was, she was going through it, but she wasn't really getting anything out of it because the cup was empty, everything was plastic, and it looked good, but it was empty.
Yeah,
And
it looked perfect.
Yeah, it looked perfect.
Her life looked perfect.
And we do that to ourselves in life, where we go through the motions. We set up this plastic front that we look good, but we're really hollow on the inside or empty on the. It's not feeding us, versus really living. And in church, you go through the motions versus having a real relationship with God and getting real spiritual nourishment.
Right. Okay, so Jesus doesn't give us plastic empty cups, and he doesn't give us plastic bread on little plastic plates. Instead, he gives us the cups that run over, and which would be the Holy Spirit, basically, life led by the Holy Spirit. And he gives us his very own self, the bread of life, which is a relationship with him. And it's a relationship that feeds our very souls, not just looking good on the outside.
Yeah.
And so Jesus' power does not stop at the spiritual level. It walks right into our physical lives, and it changes our actions as well.
And it's just a good thing to, even if you have a vibrant, or, exciting spiritual life, it's always good just to check yourself. How am I doing? Am I really, am I just going through the motions, or am I really living life? I get that from like recovery. It's always, check in. It's like, well, how am I really doing? That's a good thing to do.
Right. So also, Barbie eats, drinks, dresses, and speaks and acts what the human does for her, right? And Jesus sets us free from that kind of living. We no longer have to live at the whims of, what is popular at the moment or what other people think that we should be doing. It is sin that enslaves us, and it is God who sets us free from that kind of plastic living. And so, moving on now to Lot. There was our little smattering of Barbie there. And for anybody who's seen that movie, so Genesis 13, it talks about Abraham and Lot going their separate ways, because they both have so many cattle and so much stuff, basically, and so many people working for them, that the land in one spot does not produce enough to take care of all of them.
And Abraham and Lot, in the story, if you're not familiar with it, Abraham and Lot are traveling together, because Lot's, his nephew, it's his family, and God blesses and blesses and blesses, and their, possessions got to be so big that then their own, shepherds and their, workers started arguing and fighting over, pasture, water, and where it finally came to a head where they had to do something. And Abraham says, we're just too big. Let's split. Let's go different ways. And in that sense, Abraham, being the elder, should have been able to say, I'm going this way and you go the other way. But because Abraham is who he was, he gives Lot that, tremendous honor and says, you choose a way. And whichever way you go, I will go the other way, which was really a magnanimous thing to do, but also a statement of faith in that I don't care which way I go, God will bless me if I, travel with God. And Lot chose to go towards Sodom, because there was better land and better everything and closer to the city. And I think we did a whole talk on this once, where it looked a better way, but it was actually, the path of destruction. Where Abraham, and then it was like the wilderness. And so we know what happened to Lot.
Right, and Lot, of course, moved towards the outside of the city of Sodom, and which would have been a fairly populated city at that point in time. But basically, we aren't going the way God wants us to go if we are headed down the path that everybody else is on. So,
if everybody's moving the same direction you are, it's good sometimes to stop and check directions.
Yes. Matthew 7:13 and 14, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. So Sodom was a city full of pride, and pride is always there to show us the way to be perfect. And the way to have a perfect life, right? And so basically pride tells us if we just do this and we just have that our lives, that we will be perfect, right?
Yeah. Sodom would have been a whole city about having this, having that, having whatever you wanted, having whatever you thought of.
Yeah, and so we have this idea of how to be perfect, kind of guided along by pride. So if we fast forward though to this book, this story of course is found in Genesis. Fast forward to the end of the Bible there in Revelation 3:17 and 18. people in big cities like Sodom and Gomorrah and such weren't the only ones with their idea of how to be perfect. The Laodiceans also had the same idea of perfection. They had it all figured out. And it was no different than the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, basically. You say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth, and I do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes, so that you can see. So that we could see that all of that kind of living is plastic living. It's the empty cups versus the cups that run over.
Well, you should tell them about how those three things specifically related to Laodicea.
Which three things?
The gold, salve, and white raiment.
Oh, why don't you tell them that?
Oh, okay.
Since I'm the one doing all the talking over here anyway.
Yeah, well, we actually did that. I don't know if it was
we
here.
Did that. You're right. Did we do? No, I think we did. We did that whole Revelation thing.
Yeah, I did a whole series of Revelation. Was that here or was that back in Lincoln?
Oh, I want to say Lincoln, but it doesn't seem like it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. But
oh, by the way, today is the very day, apparently, that we moved into this house 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, Aspen saw it on Facebook,
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
2 years ago
2 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Well, you should catch Fluff and show her, because that was her first day of moving into this house with us, in a way. As we opened the door, she walked in and looked around like, oh, this is my place. You guys can come if you like.
Yes,
yeah.
At 2 a.m.
Yeah, at 2 a.m. Anyway, to say to the church in Laodicea that, oh, you need gold, buy gold from me, would have been kind of like, huh? I go, what? Because Laodicea was a very wealthy city, and they were known for the trade of, silks and fine silks and garment, that kind of thing. And there was also not salve, but they were known for a treatment, I don't know, it was from a rock, or I'd have to look it up because I'm old and I forget everything. But they had medicine that people used, for their eyes. So this whole thing that the John was making a play on this is like, you think you're rich and you think you're dressed finely and you think you see well, but you really don't. You're poor, you're naked, and you're blind. And so he was telling him, you need to get these things that you think you have and you don't. And that's a little what kind of what you're saying.
Right, and that would be like the cup that runneth over, full of the Holy Spirit and the bread of life, just full of a relationship with Jesus. And we can't see that we need those things.
Like Barbie had the empty cup, the plastic bread, and he's like, but you don't have anything, you need this real.
Yeah, and that the real, right. So, okay, so my oldest daughter had a lot of Barbie stuff. I do mean a lot. She had the house and the car, I don't know, a van and camping stuff. And I mean, it was so long ago, of course, I can't really remember everything she had by now. But, a lot of Barbies and a few Kens probably. And I mean, the big blue tub of...
Did she have Alan? No one had Alan.
Probably not.
Poor Alan. No one wanted Alan. Anyway.
Okay. So she had all the Barbie stuff. Okay, and so when her younger brother got old enough to play, she took him down to her room and they played Barbies for hours on end, and they both seemed to enjoy it. They also had other things that they played with, but the one thing that they played with that they seemed to receive the most joy from, because when they did it, they would just laugh and giggle, and the kind of laughter that is, when kids are really having fun. And so they had discovered that if they pushed the end of the mattress down off the end of the bed, that it would slide up against the wall, and then the other part of it was still on the top of the bottom of the bed. And so they could jump on that and slide down, and of course they would laugh and giggle and run around and do it all over again and do it all over again and do it all over again. And they just had so much fun doing that, right? But the question is, were the kids happier because they had lots of Barbie? Or basically, okay, some of you may remember Imelda Marcos. Her husband was the president of the Philippines from 1965 until 1986. Ferdinand Marcos. I don't know if you wanted to share how...
Revolution and things, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, it didn't go well. There you go. So they eventually had to leave the Philippines, of course, and they left behind almost everything that they had. And turns out when they went into Imelda Marcos's closet, they saw that she had 3,000. I mean, wouldn't it have been interesting to actually count? How long did it take to count up 3,000 pairs of shoes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, there is clearly no peace, no contentment, and no satisfaction found in an Imelda Marcos size shoe collection. Because if peace was found in shoes, then only one pair of shoes sitting in our closet would be all that we would need, right? So the reason we end up with Imelda Marcos size shoe collections is because shoes don't bring us the peace that they promise us, and so we always need another pair. It doesn't have to be shoes. We're just making an analogy there. So also, I had to figure out how long it would take to actually wear 3,000 pairs of shoes just once, and it would take actually a little over 8 years to wear 3,000 pairs of shoes just once. But really, you know, with a shoe collection of 3,000 shoes, when is it that you stop buying shoes? I mean, basically you don't, because if you have that many shoes to start out with, why are you going to stop buying them? Because it is never enough.
I wear one pair, so I can't relate to this particular analogy. One pair of shoes gives me great peace, as long as they fit well.
Oh, that's true, as long as they fit well. That is the truth.
Yeah.
One pair. You know, it's funny because I have had more shoes in my lifetime at one time than I do now, and yet I seem to wear the same two pair, like always the same pair of tennis shoes every day, and then probably about the same two pairs of shoes to church, just kind of, and yet so all the other shoes would just sit there. So much for having them. But anyways, my oldest daughter and her brother spent hours, you know, playing with the Barbie stuff, and yet the most laughter came from the bedroom when they were playing with the slide bed. So I didn't have to buy them Barbie stuff, right? And then more Barbie stuff in order for them to have fun. They had more fun, more laughter, and more joy, and something that they already had. And Jesus has already died for our sins, right? The gift of salvation is already there. All we need to do is accept it and use it.
Are you saying that's... So they didn't need the Barbies, the slide and everything was already there?
Yeah,
Oh.
It was part of the bed. And they just, you know.
This analogy will never work for me. Because when Aspen was just a wee tot, she discovered the same kind of fun with the mattress and the sliding. And she was wee, and I thought it was so fun. And I thought, I don't know, maybe this could... And then the mattress slid off the little thing she was hanging on, and her head went bonk. So whenever you use this analogy, that's what I think of. I'm like, oh, poor Aspen.
Yeah, it worked out really well for, you know, I don't remember anyone getting hurt playing that game. But then again, there was plenty of bed left up on the end of the bed.
Really?
Yeah.
I think hers was her crib mattress, and
that
I remember
smaller,
sitting
yeah.
there thinking, just as I thought, you know, I was like, I don't know, this could be dangerous, because what if that slips? Wham! But she doesn't remember any of that, so it's okay now. She doesn't need therapy, because it's all a distant past memory. But your analogy still holds. Sorry.
Okay. So when we receive salvation from the one true God, all we need is the one true God, right? We don't have to have all the other gods we serve in the belief that they are actually serving us. Because if they served us well, we would only need that one pair of shoes sitting in our closet. Okay, so we're going back to Lot and Abraham. Don't want people to get lost. I get lost sometimes when speakers jump from one topic to the next. So now we're going back to Lot and Abraham, okay? They parted ways because they both had, so much stuff that they couldn't stay in the same place together because there wasn't enough grass and whatever. We already talked about that, right? Okay? So let's fast forward to chapter 19 of Genesis. And Lot lives in the city of Sodom with his wife and 2 daughters, and he's a well-respected man who sits at the gate of the city, right? And God has decided to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. First of all, he stops by and he visits with Abraham, and he tells Abraham, and Abraham's like, oh, but what if there's only 50 people who are righteous? Will you save it and not destroy it then? He's like, yes. Well, what about 45? What about 40? What about 30? What about 20? What about 10? And God keeps saying, yes, I won't destroy it if there are only even 10 righteous people. Well, it turns out, of course, there weren't even 10 righteous people, but God in his mercy towards Abraham and Lot and his family decided to go ahead and get Lot and his family out of the city. So the thing is, Lot and his family don't really want to leave because they have a perfectly good life. In Sodom, they've got stuff, and it kind of makes them who they are, right? Mm-hmm. And so finally the 2 angels take his 2 daughters and Lot and his wife by the hand and leads them out of the city. So what basically did Lot leave behind that he didn't want to leave behind? Basically all the lies of who he thought that he was. And the angels led him to the place of truth where he was to become the person that God said that he was. He didn't need all of that stuff to prove who he was. So basically no amount of money can buy the truth. It just can't. The fact is that money usually buys us lies. But let's take that one step further. It is the love of the money, actually, that buys lies. I wrote a sentence here. I'm going to, Brett and I have not talked about this, but I shall ask him. Sometimes I write stuff and I wonder, should I leave that in there? Is it actually true or not? So I have this question mark here. Brett and I did not talk about this. Money is an inanimate object which is neither good nor evil, but it has the power to reveal what is written on our hearts. And so, Brett, do you believe that sentence to be true or false? And you can tell us why. But you don't have to.
No, it's true. Money's amoral. Money's not
yes.
good or bad. It's not, good or evil. It's, amoral. It's what you do with it and how you get it and that kind of thing. And yes, I think how you act and react to, wealth or money or income does reveal what's deeper, inside, what's, your character and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So.
Speaking of which.
When?
Okay. So I was reading an article, I think a couple weeks ago now, but it was wealthy, well, we talked about this. It was wealthy people who had saved and gone through, they had gone through whatever program or method they did, to pay off debt and save money, and they had quite a bit of wealth, amassed and saved up. And they were interviewing them, talking to them about, how they dealt with their finances then, and they were talking about how difficult it was to spend, and that they were still clipping coupons. They were still, not, unless they could find the Super Saver airfare, they wouldn't, And it's like, you're a multimillionaire. Why are you still doing that? And it was something that was so ingrained in them that they, emotionally couldn't spend. And the whole article came about these people who had all this money and just lived like they were, just barely making it, and died with millions of dollars in the bank. And so they were curious, why? Once you get to a certain point, why don't, the house, the cars, whatever. And because their practice and their focus of amassing wealth, once they were in a place of, fairly comfort and they could retire and they could do it, they couldn't let it go. They could not emotionally let the money be spent. They had to hold on to it. Mm-hmm. And that was weird. Sort of like, you saying Lot and them were like, this is us, this is what we have, this is everything, this is who we are,
And even though death was knocking on their door.
Yeah.
It was on their doorstep. And you're right. They didn't want to let it go.
So it does reveal who you are, what you're like. Yeah.
Okay, for Lot, money proved how great he was, and he no doubt wondered who he would be without all of his stuff. And Abraham, of course, for Abraham, the money proved how great God was. And Abraham was still Abraham with or without his money. Lot, on the other hand, believed he was who he was, who he had created himself to be, because the money proved how great he was. Mm-hmm. And when Lot was let out of Sodom, he was going from a place where he was enslaved, basically, to doing what others thought he needed to do in order to be perfect. Because there's always a standard of perfection to have more, be more, do more. Mm-hmm. Basically, he was like Barbie drinking her empty cup of juice and pretending that it was real. Mm. And pretending that eating the plastic bread and it was real. But it didn't satisfy him any more than an Imelda Marco shoe collection of 3,000 shoes, 3,000 pairs of shoes. Mm-hmm. So in the end, a wider path to walk on does not bring us more happiness than the narrow path. And more of what we think we need does not make us happier than giving up what we think we need for what God wants us to have, the cup that overflows and the bread of life. And more Barbie stuff does not make us happier than a simple slide bed, and neither does a closet full of 3,000 pairs of shoes that is nothing more than empty cups of juice and plastic toast.
But what does make you happy and content is to sit on a desk amongst your new family and ask me to take a phone and show everybody, take a camera and show them fluff and stuff. You too can have that kind of contentment. See? Fluff doesn't have 3,000 pairs of shoes.
No, she doesn't.
And she's perfectly content. Yep. So, since it's the anniversary of the day we moved in here, I thought Fluff was the addition to our family moving here to Texas. From the very first day we were here, although we didn't officially own her then, she eventually,
Yeah, we fed her. Well, not right away. Moving in can be pretty, a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I may have fed her sporadically to start out with. But eventually we started feeding her on a regular basis.
Yeah. First we didn't know it was somebody's cat, but then we got to realize she was not really somebody. Like, I don't think we thought she was somebody's cat. And then we thought, oh, she's the neighbor's cat, but they don't really take care of her. And then they already had 3 kittens on the inside, and Fluff was never on the inside. They were let her in the garage, when it was cold. But so Miranda actually stole Fluff from them. She won her love. But then when they moved, they came and asked us, would you take care? You kind of already.
Oh yeah, she wasn't really their cat. She was a stray.
A stray that they started feeding to.
Yeah, because they had kids, and the kids were like, "Oh, feed the kitty."
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Her first name was Gamora from the Marvel movies. But we named her Fluff, and she answers to Fluff now.
Yep. I actually thought I was just being funny naming her Fluff. It's rather cliche, but it suits her very well.
It really does. She's a fluffy kitty. Anyway, going on and on about our cat. This is what old people do. We talk about our cats. This is bad. All right. Well, anyway, anything else?
No, that's it for today.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and hope you're staying cool. It's still triple digits here in Texas. Oh my goodness. Our Sabbath school was joking about having we're going to have a potluck when it cools down in December, and that's only half kidding. I don't know. I haven't looked at the 10-day forecast, but
actually we're still in triple digits till the end of the month. Just
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but Aspa's birthday is coming up on Thursday. She's praying for cooler weather for that day. If you would like to join in those petitions, I'm sure she would appreciate it. We would all appreciate one cooler day this week.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great Sabbath. And